Green Mountain Boy, so born in Vermont and humbled and honored to be here. My presentation first is going to open up with a quick video because I want to explain that people always say, people in the military that wear the uniforms, a lot of stripes, 34 years in the service, and who are you? The video I'm about to show you was made by Vermonters, and it explains who we are. We're actually you. But my talk today is going to be on a fiscal year 16. It's AEF, which is Air Expeditionary Force, which is talking about that construct of, are we expeditionary? We are. And I'm going to show you that we actually did something, the first unit in the world to actually deploy a fighter unit in under 30 days. Active duty, no other Air Force has ever done it, and I'm going to talk to you about that, and hopefully just create a dialogue. I'd love to hear your perspectives or you have questions on it.
It's going to take me about 5 minutes to set this up, Chief. So,
okay, what I'm going to do is then I actually will just sit down and I'll just start talking about this.
Yeah.
So I want to actually put it in a time frame. Think of it as October of 2016.
Yes.
What happened was the Air Force was looking for, DOD was looking for a unit to relieve a carrier group that was in the Med. The carrier group had been there for 1 year, 12 months. And basically it was broken. And they got extended for an additional 6 months. There was no other carrier group that could actually extend or be in place. So they were looking for someone to replace it. They couldn't find one. What they actually did is they actually looked at the GRF, which is the Global Reaction Force. It's break glass in case of emergency, and they're going to come out and say, hey, you don't want to use that. That's in case a war breaks out that they're going to deploy this unit. So we were actually down in DC, my boss and I, and we actually said, he said, is there any unit can do it there? And my boss, Colonel Guiney, who was the 158th Fighter Wing Commander, says, yeah, says the Vermont Air National Guard can do it. Believe it or not, the senior leadership of the Air Force actually laughed at him. It says, no guard unit can do it. You take 6 months for you to deploy. He says, there's no way that you could turn your jets and get there. And he says, I can do it. And what they did is actually they considered it, and they actually said, yes, he says, and I don't want to miss the timeline, so I'm actually going to open up to a few pages.
Thank you.
So when they actually came back and they said, yep, he says, Burlington, you can go do this. They came down with, when they deploy you, it's not like it's deployed just saying you're deployed. They come down with what's called law, and it's statutes, and there's like 12301 is non-vol. It's like saying, you know what, we're ordering you to go to war. You're going to take 300, you're going to take 12 jets, and you're going to go over and fight this. And that's the way it came down. So I got permission to use this information here because some of it was classified. It's been declassified since. Within 24 hours, the wing commander got up on the stage and basically said, and I was his number 2, and we basically said, we told everyone in the wing, says, hey, we got this no notice, 30-day deployment, never been done before, we've accepted it, said go home and tell your families, we're going to deploy you in 30 days. So to fill that, there's 300 people that we're actually going to deploy in 30 days. So the jets aren't configured that. So the F-16s, we're going to sunset up. We're actually going to send them to the boneyard because we're going to get the F-35. So everybody was saying, hey, you know what, we're going to end this. It says we're slowing down, we're ramping down. They all went home. The next day, what's called a DRMD, which is what we fill by a line number of going overseas. We filled all 300 lines within 24 hours. Never been done before. Everybody, he says, yep, we're going to go. The same day, a message came down and says, we're not going to invol you. You're going to make it voluntary. We had just told all the employers, we just told the families that we were going to, no kidding, make you go. And now we're going to go back and we're going to change the mind because, believe it or not, the Secretary of Defense would not sign what's called the SDOB, the Secretary of Defense Orders Book, would not sign it and basically says that you're going to do it voluntary. So he had to get back on stage. We wrote each employer a letter saying, he says, we apologize for this. It was not the wing commander's fault, but he took it upon himself to write a letter to each one of the employers. We still fill the lines. So I'm going to tell you what happens in 30 days. 30 days is normally, it takes 4 months to turn those jets. We've been flying what's called CT, just local training in Vermont. We never fly them with lives. These pilots need to be trained to drop a certain specific munition that's required overseas. That usually takes a long period of time. Now we have to actually take these jets, take them offline. We have to configure them for combat, which is going to be loaded with real munitions. That takes a long time. We had 24 F-16s, 20 were on station. We need 12 to go overseas, but you need 16 to make 12 because 4 of them actually what we do is we have called them spares as they leave to go overseas. So we can't fly them. So now we can't train our pilots to fly combat missions in Vermont. All this was huge. 5 wings stepped up across and says, we'll give you our jets to actually train your pilots to actually, so close air support. So this guy right here knows what close air support, we call it CAS. The F-16s and the Vermont Air National Guard, what I will tell you is I had it wrong. I thought we were cutting edge, we were tip of the spear. We were gonna bring warheads to foreheads and we were gonna take care of people. I'll tell you what our real job is. Our real job is to take care of his troops. We're there to take care of the soldiers on the ground, and we're going to provide support, troops in contact. True, sir?
Absolutely.
So what it did is
Built us out quite a bit.
those 5 wings gave us the planes. Now remember, I told you it was just at the end of October. What's coming up in November? Besides the great holiday in Vermont, deer season, right? So what it was is Thanksgiving's coming up, right?
Oh.
So Thanksgiving's coming up and the holidays are coming up, right?
Don't forget Veterans Day.
And the other
Veterans
units basically said, hey, we're going to give you maintainers. Actually, we're going to give your maintainers some time off, and we're going to reconfigure your jets for it. So when you say we did it, what it was, it's relationships. They came up, helped turn the jets. We took all those maintainers, and the Vermonters took them in their homes, fed them over Thanksgiving, took care of them. 2 days before Thanksgiving, we had to put an ADVON team, an advanced team, to go over. The base we were going to in Kuwait was, no kidding, it was called a warm base. There was no fighters there. There was nothing actually to support us. We had to come in and bring everything. So when you want to know what, no kidding, an AEF getting expeditionary is when you can actually pick up your whole unit and you can place it down and you can actually go to war, that's expeditionary. And what we did is we did it in 30 days. So when that came down, that order, the C-17 flight, which he was flying on with palletized seats, was taken up over into Afghanistan. There was checks being written by our wing that actually wasn't paid for. It took 9 C-17s to come in and pick up all the equipment, all the spare parts, all the things that we're going to go over, plus my advanced team, which was ammunition. I'll talk about that in a second. When they came in and they landed, so we only have so much space, so we're flying F-16s like crazy. We have a tiny little space on the airport. We actually, no kidding, put 6 C-17s on the base, and people said you couldn't do it, and we still did a flying mission. We loaded 300 tons of equipment on those C-17s, and they departed before Thanksgiving. So remember, at the end of October, before Thanksgiving, we launched them and they're going to Kuwait. They landed Kuwait and they find out, so the base is inadequate to do operations on it. The base commander who was there did amazing things for us. I'm going to talk about ammunition or ammo that we expended that when we were overseas. We found out that they have to build bombs. Bombs don't come built for the F-16. They ship them in pieces, and you have to build them on site. And it's a huge procedure. What they did is they actually built a complete, no kidding, ammo dump, and they built an assembly line. Henry Ford would have been proud of it. What they did is they had to build new roads in and out. They set up this tent. They had to set up secure comm. This was all had to be done, and we had to build munitions before the F-16s arrived in less than 2 weeks.
Wow.
In less than 2 weeks.
That's amazing.
Which is, it gets better. This gets, no kidding, this gets unbelievable because this is still being talked about by the Air Force. It was talked about in the Pentagon. They're still using the story because they want to use it as a construct, and they don't think it's repeatable. However, there's a lot of people who helped us. I don't want to say the wing did it by themselves. So they built those bombs. Leadership on Kuwait, basically on that base, Al Dafra, was saying, what do you need? What do you guys need today? And every time that we asked for something, they gave it to us. They said, when those F-16s show up, it says, we're going to war. And I haven't talked about what we're there to do. I'm going to tell you about what we're there to do. We actually sent 2 pilots over, and 2 pilots, actually what they do is they survey the area, they actually set up where they're going to fly, how they're going to get in and out, how they do DIP clearances, which is diplomatic clearances, how they're going to fly from Kuwait into Iraq, and how they're going to fly into Syria. We just don't own all that airspace. It's owned by Qatar, which is our CAOC, our Combined Air Operations Center. If I'm talking too fast, trust me, I'm
Yeah.
French, just tell me to
That's
slow
right.
down, and I'll slow down.
I do wonder, what do you mean by the airspace that,
So
I
any,
mean, right, flying over countries?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so,
any airspace that we fly over, like those countries, you have to get foreign diplomatic clearances, because we don't own them, that's not our countries.
Right.
And you would think military, we can go where we want? Absolutely
you'll
not.
get shot down or something.
You bet.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna talk about that, how close this came.
Master Chief, good example was when we wanted to hit Gaddafi in Libya, and they had asked permission from France to fly over the airspace because it was a quicker route to Libya, but France gave the no-go to it, so they had to go around. I think this was during Reagan's administration,
It was.
and that creates 100% on that one. Have to have their permission.
Interesting, yeah,
So when
It's an
they,
act of war if you go over without permission.
without permission.
Yeah.
so when they started building the base up, we actually contracted a commercial flight to take our 300 airmen. And I was, absolutely, I'm gonna stop for a second, I'll come back. So
Yeah.
please, can you just hit play on that, sir?
Today is a celebration of freedom, symbolizing an end as well as a beginning. Let the word go forth from this time and place that the torch has been passed to a new generation of Americans born in this century, proud of our ancient heritage. Let us go forth to lead the land we love, at home and around the world.
Welcome to Vermont, the state of freedom and unity. Charted by the French explorer Samuel de Champlain, Vermont became known as the Green Mountain State. In the mid-1700s, this humble state formed their first militia, the Green Mountain Boys. Spearheaded by Ethan Allen, the famed Green Mountain Boys have blazed trails of action, innovation, and independent thought stretching back more than 250 years. Who would have imagined that this small-town militia would someday be pioneers in the Air National Guard, with the most advanced and capable weapon system in the Air Force? Just a small New England state surrounded by maple trees, cornfields, rolling farmland, mountains, and weather as tough and gritty as its people. This is our beautiful state of many seasons and courageous characters. The people here believe in something. You'll meet unprecedented work ethic and a lending hand. Welcome to the land where the job always gets done. From rising floodwaters along to short notice deployments, the Green Mountain Boys are always ready. This all-volunteer force serves a dual mission: supporting the communities of Vermont and building partnerships around the world. This is your Air National Guard. It is who we are. The selfless service demonstrated by our founding fathers has become deep-rooted in our members, whether they are in or out of uniform. Supported 24/7 by our families, our friends, and our community, we are able to honor this tradition and continue a legacy of greatness. As John F. Kennedy once said, "Today our concern must be with the future, for the world is changing." This mission starts here. Our airmen are excited, and our airmen are committed to this challenge. This is it. And we are ready. And these are your Green Mountain Boys.
And girls.
Yes. That was actually a good topic, which was called Green Mountain Boys, and that was years ago. One of the adjutant generals was going to change that name, and it was voted by all the members for the Green Mountain Boys, all of them. So there's 3,700, and it was unanimous. Basically, says let's keep the name, let's keep the heritage.
Notice everything on the tape though is everything but an F-16.
It is, because what it is, that film, this was just made. This was just absolutely made. This film was made by one of us, I call it, Vermonters, and this individual who made this film was 19 years old. Was 19 years old. And the story is about always being ready. And being, so going back to the story of what we did is, when we took those 300 members and we actually on a commercial flight, and we landed in Al Dafra. So as soon as when they land, they actually go into crew rest, and they're supposed to be a certain period of time. But shortly after comes the F-16s, because you can't box them up and they're flying over. So when the F-16s actually land in Al Dafra, you're allowed a period of time, and it's let's call it half a week, because I can't give you the exact number, but it's half a week. The two pilots that were there says, let's let the CAOC know, the Air Operations Center, let's let them know here. So we're going to take an orientation flight. And they asked 6 hours after they arrived. 6 hours after they arrived, all 12 F-16s were fully loaded and ready, combat loaded, ready for flight. So the first two pilots that had already been there, the rest went into crew rest, actually say, hey, we want to take them up, go around the flagpole, we want to let people know that the Vermonters are here. They actually took them up and they sent them up to Mosul. And how long do you think they flew up at Mosul's in Iraq? How long do you think they flew that first flight? Take a wild guess.
45 minutes.
17 hours. 17 hours. And what they did is they had munitions on the planes that were basically cutting edge for the F-16, which is called SDB, a small diameter bomb. When you'll see the F-16, there was pylons. There's 9 stations they can hang things off it. But they'd hang it and they'd put basically, no kidding, 4 bombs on it, and they're small. They're really small because they call small collateral damage. And what they did is they went up and they have the guns, and they were only limited by fuel. And what they do, if they have a tanker, they can just keep refueling, and they can stay on orbit. And what they were there for is they were actually there to take care of the Army. I'm telling you, that's what the huge thing. Yes, sir.
What were they using for tankers?
They're using KC-135s.
Those are Civil 135?
Absolutely. They're really, really old. There's a new one coming online right now, but it's really, really old.
Yeah. East Air Force Base is getting ready to get.
They're getting
new ones.
KC-46 brand new ones. Yes.
That's bomber fighter, right? The F-35?
It's a
I mean, the
fighter.
35, that's a bomber fighter?
It's not a bomber. It's a fighter.
It's just a fighter?
It's a fighter.
And what's the difference between that and the Raptor, F-22?
They're
That's a
both-
fighter too, isn't it?
Yes, they're both 5th gen. The Raptor's 2 engines, the F-35 is 1 engine, and the F-35 is much more technological advanced.
The F-35 more tech, but which one's more maneuverable? One seems a lot larger than the other or something.
Raptor.
So for that, actually, because I work with it, I cannot talk about the F-35.
Can you say how loud they are?
Yes, I can. Yes, I can. I can actually talk to that. If you want to hold that question to
I
the
will,
end,
yeah.
I will actually. I'd love to answer that question for you. So-
Yeah, look, we fully support them.
Yep.
I know everyone in Vermont knows the issues that have been
We
going on
also,
though.
If you listen to
He's also from-
VPR,
he's
you
also from
know.
Burlington.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I will
If you
give
don't,
you.
you don't.
I'll give you my opinion. Everybody has their own opinion, but I will give you my opinion on that. So when we flew up to Mosul, why did the Air Force and why did the Department of Defense need us there so bad? I know the carrier group came out, they lost a huge combat capability, but they needed somebody there from Mosul. The issue was Mosul is only the only Christian city in Iraq. By pulling the carrier group out and not having a replacement, there was nobody to do combat basically from above. There was no overwatch for the troops. They were worried that we were going to lose Mosul, and if we lost Mosul, then Baghdad would have fell. Then they would have had ISIS. When we talk about ISIS, they would have had the oil fields. People say, is that the U.S. interest? It wasn't. But the issue is, ISIS would have became a state actor. They're a non-state actor right now. And if they become a state actor, they actually control the oil fields. Now they control money, and they have a resource, and they become very, very powerful. So Mosul could not fall. Period. Could not. it was no kidding, the fighting was no kidding, house to house to house. But what happens is when the F-16s, I'm gonna get to a really good point of what they did. We were only there, it was supposed to be for 60 days, we were there for 75 days because they got extended for 2 weeks, and I'll talk about that in a second. But when you actually take the fight to them, and these guys are clearing house to house, what happens, what do? They go to the safe house. Their safe house was Raqqa. So we say we push from Raqqa is, we actually, no kidding, cleaned a lot. We didn't clean it, we supported these guys. How many munitions?
Can you guys keep this, can you guys, yeah, I can't hear him when you guys are talking too. Okay, thank you.
So the munitions that we expended, no kidding, between those two cities in 75 days was 1,000 bombs. 1,000 bombs. It is a record for, no kidding, for a wing. It is a record. And it was all in support, I call it, of these guys right here. So when they were actually starting to drive them from Mosul, and we knew the city couldn't fall, and it got to the point of Raqqa, and they were saying, hey, can the F-16s, can you go over to Raqqa? Which is, that's a lot further, that's in Syria. Here's the issue with Syria is, the Russians are there. And there's a lot of bad actors that are actually there, and call it state actors who are actually, and I remember the pilots coming back. Pilots said, hey, if they want us dead, they're gonna have us, right? And the Russians would like to fly really, really close to us to the point of almost kind of irritating us, and we were dropping in Raqqa. So what was really amazing is we did not miss a line. What means a line is every time an F-16 would take off and said go to do a mission, we never missed one. We were the first unit to never miss a line in 75 days. It was no kidding. It was a 15-round fight, and we threw in for all, basically, we went in for a 3-round fight. We went in all in. So we worked 24/7. We flew 24/7, and I call it we. I'm going to say our Green Mountain Boys. Our Green Mountain Boys, basically, no kidding, worked 24/7 for 75 days in a row. It says it never missed a flight, never missed it. And I'll tell you a couple of stories that happened is one of our pilots got the highest, the Culligan Award, which is the highest award in our country for a flying. Basically, we had an aircraft coming back out. I won't give the pilot's name because it was being filmed. If we weren't being filmed, I would give you the pilot's name. But we were coming out of Syria, and basically it was hostile territory. It was no kidding. If it went down, couldn't receive fuel from the tanker. So basically what happened is the tanker, this young senior airman on the tanker, that boom that comes back out of the tanker that goes into the F-16 is, he's flying that boom. Think of how young that is, right? The F-16 will not take it. They came up in the plane, I was on the radio, and I'm talking people getting nervous. He goes, if I don't get fuel, I'm going down. And we're gonna lose a $20 million jet, and we're gonna lose it behind enemy territory, and a pretty good chance you know what's gonna happen with ISIS. The boom operator came up this thing, he goes, get the F-16 close, and he goes, I'm going to jam the boom right into the jet, and basically going to break the jet, but he's going to lock it right into the jet. And no kidding, from Syria all the way, I get emotional talking about it, it's amazing. This young kid who did this, locked it into that F-16, and that KC-135 flew from Syria all the way back to Kuwait. Basically, think about that now. You're not just driving your car. You're at 22,000 feet. Every time that you turn that tanker, that F-16 has to turn, but they don't turn like this. They have to turn like this. Yeah. That boom's attached to that F-16, and he brought them all the way back, and they saved the jet and they saved the pilot. Is that amazing? But it gets better. So when they had the jet and they fixed it on the ground, so now we're down to 11 jets doing that mission. So the jet had to be repaired. They did called combat phases, that's why I'm so proud of the Green Mountain Boys. I tell you, I could tell this story all day long. They basically turned the jet, they fixed the jet. It wouldn't clear what's called Code 1. It wouldn't clear that, he says, there's something wrong, we can't find it, so what they do is called a functional check flight. Sometimes, it's like, no kidding, they call it the F-16 reboot. You gotta reboot it, so you gotta fly it, you gotta reboot it, come back down, it'll reset. The jet's, and it's an 80s jet, it's old. The pilot that flew it took off and did a functional check flight, clean, nothing on it, guns empty. He's going to go up. He's going to put it through a bunch of tests, then bring it back. Left the base. You do basically it's an unrestricted climb. Goes up, goes in, and he's leaving the base. As he's leaving the base, he has an engine fire. He has an engine fire. Loses everything. 7 computers. Loses every single one. Loses to the point he's dead sticking the F-16. He on his heads-up display, think where he is. He's in Kuwait. It's not like Burlington, Vermont, where I know the land. He actually knows, okay, I'm going this way. Turns the jet, comes back, has no radios, can't communicate with the tower. Any other pilot, they said, would have actually should have punched out and should have lost the jet and should have just. And he took the jet and he actually flew the jet back to Al Dhafra and he landed that jet, saved it.
What does dead stick mean?
Dead stick is no power, absolutely
Oh.
zero power, zero communication.
Basically a glider?
A glider. So when I said HUD, heads-up display. So when you have a heads-up display on the F-16, if you're sitting in the F-16, you're sitting there and it's like this around you. There is no room. So on this side, he's got the joystick, got the throttle over here, and basically a computer with a head-up display and some. There's no room. There's absolutely no room. Saves the jet.
You see the red light?
You shut it off.
No, that was my fault.
Yes, yes.
Oh.
Okay. Yes, I see the red light. So he